Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and hauntings.
Today's story takes us to Mount Washington of Pittsburgh. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
Let's get into it. So, Mount Washington. We are finally covering Shiloh Gastro / Shiloh Grill, which has been requested by so many Pittsburgh listeners.
Really? I did not even know. I don't even know where this is. I know where Mount Washington is, but I don't know that I've ever really even heard of this restaurant.
It's a very, very popular restaurant. David and I have been a few times, but it was back when it was Shiloh Grill,
okay.
I think, when we were there. It's currently Shiloh Gastro. And you are going to remember it. Not remember it. You will remember things it's associated with as soon as you hear about the history. So, it's an old Victorian house that sits in Mount Washington, that neighborhood of Pittsburgh. For those that don't know, there's the point of Pittsburgh and then the rivers, and Mount Washington is on the far side of the rivers up on a mountain. Literally.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There's an incline. You can go and overlook the whole city at night. It's stunning. That's actually where we got engaged.
Oh my god, yeah, I was there for that.
Yeah, but not at Shiloh Gastro, obviously. No. People listening are like, what?
At the pub? Yeah.
But anyways, there's tons of restaurants up there and cool stuff. So this location is associated to the Old Allegheny County Jail.
Oh my gosh, cool.
Because you might remember Kate Soffel. The story goes Kate Soffel fell for the Biddle Brothers, who were arrested and imprisoned at the jail. Kate's husband was the warden of the jail, so she kind of became enthralled with these prisoners. It was this huge scandal, etc. The Shiloh Gastro is her family's home.
Oh.
I know. I was shocked.
That's a big connection.
It's a huge connection. Even more so, because they actually lived here before they moved into the jail. Because before her husband was warden, they just inherited the house from her parents and lived there.
So not only was it her childhood home, but she actually lived here with her husband.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It is very crazy. I couldn't believe it.
No. And everyone always says Pittsburgh is a small town, and I actually believe that.
It's definitely a small town.
Yeah.
And think about what the commute would have been back then to get down the mountain.
Oh, yeah, no wonder they moved into the jail. That would be dangerous.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Although the incline is old.
Actually, yeah, I always forget that was actually used by people to travel. It's not just a sightseeing thing that it is today.
Yeah, it was used for people to get to work.
Yeah.
So this location has been a restaurant for quite a while now. As I said, it was previously Shiloh Grill, and it's now Shiloh Gastro. They describe it on their website as, quote, "We dish out contemporary comfort food with regional and international influences. Stop by for craft beer, handmade cocktails, and global wines in a relaxed yet energetic vibe," end quote.
That sounds great.
Yeah. I haven't been there again since the revamp, but it does get very busy on summer days because they do have a really nice patio out there. And those areas of Mount Washington where there's tons of patios and people outside, it's in that area. So it's very popular. It can be hard to get a table there. But if you're in the area, check it out. Even if you just check it out for the history and the fact that the previous warden of Pittsburgh County Jail, Old Allegheny County Jail, rather, lived there, and there was this huge scandal. That's just a huge part of Pittsburgh history.
It is.
Taking out the paranormal. But now, of course, it would not be on our podcast if there wasn't paranormal aspects. We've had many restaurants that have bathroom hauntings. The Mushulu, McGillen's Ale House, even the Shawnee Inn. And here we have yet another. And you know what? That's not even a comprehensive list, because as I was writing up episode notes, I was thinking of those, but it was also Sidebar had a restaurant or restroom haunting.
Yeah.
There's tons.
It's just the bathroom is the place to be.
Yeah.
For these spirits. And I always wonder if that's because that's where the quiet these restaurants are so populated. So that's just a quiet part of the restaurant that maybe they can all hang out in, but
I mean, or the restaurant could be haunted, but because it's so loud, you're only hearing the apparitions or the ghosts when you're in the bathroom, because then it's quieter.
Right, yeah.
It could be either. But here, in the second floor women's restroom, it's said to be haunted. One visitor said that they heard heeled shoes clacking along the floor, which would not be unheard of in the bathroom. You know, tile amplifies sound. And then they heard the last stall open and shut. They went to wash their hands and noticed that there seemed to be no one else in the bathroom. So they looked, and the stall was actually empty. They could push the door in, and no one was in there. Now, the door had not opened again since they heard the noise.
Well, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I think if I was in that situation, I would be like, I'm not going to look, because the less I know, the better.
Yeah, I think of how Hannah from Horror Hour with the Hannahs had a paranormal experience in the McGillen's Ale House bathroom, and she came down terrified.
Yeah.
I don't think I would love having an experience.
No, especially because, and you've talked about this before, but I do not enjoy anything to do with mirrors, even in the daytime. So if I'm in the bathroom and I come out of my stall and I realize as I'm looking in the mirror, someone may have, like a spirit may have walked by and gotten into a stall, I would just be looking down. I don't want to see what's going on. What's happening behind me is none of my business. So I'm just going to like real quick wash my hands and get out of there.
The other thing I was thinking, what if this person pushed on the door and there was someone in there? Can you imagine?
Oh my God, no.
Or like, you know, when you're checking to see if all the stalls are taken and you'll like lean down to see if you can see shoes.
Yes.
Or they like do that and the person comes out and they're like, oh my bad, I thought you were a ghost.
Yeah.
You know?
So sorry. I'm just really into the paranormal.
Right. I was just very convinced there was no one else here. But I was thinking this person must have been pretty convinced that there was no one else there to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is that risk that you interrupt someone using the bathroom.
Yeah, yes.
And many people say that this ghost in the bathroom is Kate herself.
Oh, well, that would make sense. You know?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, again, it's the idea of, are spirits tied to one place or can they move around? Because she's also said to haunt the jail.
Right. And so I'm wondering if, you know, because then the other question is, can your spirit kind of be broken up? Like, can you be in two places at one time where there's a part of her spirit that really enjoyed her time at this house, and then, of course, because of the, I'm assuming, trauma for her back then to do with the scandal, there's also a part of her that's, like, stuck to this jail.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's definitely possible. Again, maybe it's just your spirit exists on a continuum at different places where they were at that stage of their life.
Yeah, there's that, you know, The Good Place mentions the whole Jeremy Bearimy thing.
Yeah, Jeremy Bearimy.
Where, like, time is just kind of like a construct. That's possible.
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, not Jeremy Bearimy specifically, but...
Could be.
It's true.
The people writing The Good Place are like, no one's going to believe this. We could just tell them the truth. That's funny. Kate is also said to be elsewhere in the house. A portrait of Kate actually hangs in the upstairs dining room, and her ghost is said to appear there wearing a white flowing gown, which almost sounds like a wedding gown to me.
Yeah, it does.
But no one specified. I mean, how could you know if it's a wedding gown?
Right, yeah, fair. But it's interesting that she's kind of portraying as like a lady in white.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. I wonder what she would be looking for, though, because like the lady in white is always like trying to find her baby or her husband or something.
Right.
Unless she's looking for the Biddle Brothers.
Oh, maybe.
Could be. Who knows?
They're across town, Kate.
Yeah.
Really sorry.
And this is the room that used to be the Soffel's bedroom, in addition to the place where her portrait hangs. So it makes a lot of sense to me that this is where she's going to be appearing.
Yeah.
Also, in that dining room, though, there's said to be other hauntings because people report hearing the sound of chairs moving around, only nothing is actively moving in the room.
Yeah, I always think that chairs moving around is pretty significant because that is a very distinct sound.
Yeah.
You know, that's not really something that you're going to get. When we talk about footsteps, you said this before, the creaking of the floor is gonna happen with old houses, but like chairs sliding across the ground is not really gonna be made by anything environmental.
Right, and for it to be loud enough and significant enough that people are actually going to check, it must really sound like chairs are being moved.
Right, yeah. And then to find that nothing's moved is a little crazy, actually.
Yeah, must be very startling. Like, am I hearing things?
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes it's heard from adjacent rooms, even when the dining room is empty, and sometimes there will be people actually in the dining room, so the staff can go in and say, hey, it sounded like things were moving, and the staff that are in there will say, like, no, I'm setting the table, for example.
Oh, okay, wait, so then are the people in the room not hearing it?
Correct.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what that would be about. I can't understand, like, my brain doesn't have a theory as to, like, why someone in the room wouldn't hear it, but adjacent rooms would.
Well, to me, it's almost like the adjacent room is the haunted one. Like, that's where the echoes are happening. And the dining room itself might not actually be haunted. By the chair moving.
Right.
Kate is, of course, said to be there. But that's one theory I have, but it's just a guess.
Well, no, I think that's fair because, bias really plays a huge part in what our brains come up with. So if the adjacent rooms are not meant to have tables and chairs, then I do think it makes sense for your brain to hear something and think, oh, that must be in the dining room.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's even just harkening back to a significant time when things were being moved into the dining room,
Right, yeah.
So it could be a few things, I think. People also report the smell of sudden cigarette smoke, even when alone. And we do know that strong scents, like smoke, can stay in certain materials like wood for a very long time. And as the wood expands and contracts with heat and humidity, it will release some of these smells, rather. Now, I'm skeptical of this one here. Until I read that people say along with smelling smoke, they see spirit orbs or they catch orbs on camera.
Okay. I think if we were going to have a place where there was paranormal cigarette smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, because it wasn't a pub.
I know, right? That's what I was thinking, though.
Like, it wasn't a pub when we're talking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's now a pub, but it wasn't when...
Like Caitlin,
the spirits were there, yeah, alive.
Unless it's a spirit of someone from when, because it's been a restaurant for years, so it could be like a more recent spirit.
Okay, that would make sense too. But even, I mean, smoking was so popular that someone smoking in a Victorian style kind of home would not surprise me as a spirit.
I agree. I'm just always skeptical because of how it can linger.
Yes. Yeah. I remember saying this on an episode before, but yeah, my dad thought our basement was haunted because at 3 a.m. he always smelled smoke, and he thought that there was a spirit down there that must have smoked, whatever. And then someone debunked that for us.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who it was?
Was it Brandon?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if you're just trying not to dox him.
No, I was like, I think it's Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon of Haunted US. Go check them out. HauntedUS.com for haunted locations.
Yes.
The thing about the spirit orbs, in addition to the smoke, I've never seen a spirit orb with my naked eye, even though I've caught what could be spirit orbs on camera. And I do want to say spirit orbs are hotly debated.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know that I've ever experienced seeing a spirit orb in person.
Right. And the debate with photography is, are they just tricks of light, like light abnormalities, or is it really these orbs?
Yeah.
So maybe it's happening that they're having light abnormalities and the expansion of the material.
Right.
I'm no pro with photography, nor am I there in these situations, but just to be skeptical, it could be both of those things occurring together.
Right.
There are also technological issues associated with the hauntings. So people report that phones freeze, especially in Kate's old bedroom, which makes sense to me if she's there, because she was a very private person, given the fact that she had this huge affair.
Yeah.
Lights also flicker commonly, and normally I would be skeptical of that because If it's just an old building that's more run down, it could be an electrical issue. But since it's a functioning restaurant, I can't imagine that they would let lights flicker.
Right. Yeah, especially if it's not a restaurant that like super leans into the hauntings, then it's like they're not doing that purposefully then, you know? Because I
Right.
think sometimes you could argue that something that leans into the hauntings might leave the lights flickering. But if the restaurant doesn't, then there would be no reason not to fix those. And the technology thing makes sense too, especially because, you know, if it's not an intelligent haunting where Kate's just kind of going about her daily business, then seeing those might be like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of messes with them. And then if it is an intelligent haunting, maybe she's aware of the fact that those can be used to like capture her. And as someone who went through a scandal, she probably does not want to be seen.
Yeah, she's like, oh my gosh, the paparazzi.
Yeah.
But I think your take on haunted locations keeping lights flickering on purpose is a hot take. I've never considered that before, but that could be something that they do, or even cause light flickering, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, like just trying to hype up some of the stuff. And that's not to say that those places are not haunted or that they're making up everything or
Right.
that they're, you know, taking advantage, etc. That's not to say anything negative. I'm just saying, like, if a light's flickering and your place is meant to be haunted, then.
Right, and people are assuming it's paranormal.
Right.
You might not want to fix it. Yeah.
Right.
That's a interesting perspective that I think could be correct depending on the owners.
Yeah.
The final thing that people report are phantom noises, like footsteps and even disembodied voices. And I think that makes sense. This seems like a pretty active place with us knowing that Kate's there. There could definitely be other people. There could be her husband, her old family members. We could even have some previous restaurant patrons that are there, or even restaurant owners.
Yes, definitely. I do think if the restaurant's been open for a while, then it stands to reason that people went back.
Yeah. Would you visit this place?
Yeah, I want to go. Again, I really was not aware of this on Mount Washington. I've really only gone to Mount Washington to go see the view. Like, I've never actually gone to anything there.
Oh my gosh, there's so many gems up there. It's actually a really like trendy neighborhood.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, so I'd love to go. And I think doing an investigation there would be cool. I mean, obviously, since it's a restaurant, not one I'd want to stay overnight just for like comfortability reasons. But
Yeah.
I would do an investigation overnight and like just leave whenever we're done. But I'd stay as late as we needed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be really, really interesting. I would love to talk to Kate. Our chances of talking to her are way higher here because I definitely doubt the courthouse would let us do an investigation there.
Right.
But owners of Shiloh Gastro, if you're listening and want us to come investigate, we would love to. I think it could also be cool to experience these things that we're more skeptical of, like lights flickering, the smell of smoke, and see how we're feeling in the moment, because part of paranormal investigation and paranormal activity in general can be your gut feeling when these things are happening. So I think to really experience it in the moment would give me a different perspective.
Yeah, agreed. I think, you know, when you're there and in it, you can kind of feel out what you think is real and what might be environmental.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would go. And if you are in Pittsburgh and have been there, let us know if you've had any paranormal experiences there, or just if you love it and want to tell us that you love it, let us know. If you're listening and there's a place that you want us to cover, please be sure to reach out to us. We definitely listen. Like I said, we had such an overwhelming request for Shiloh Gastro that I was like, I have to look into this. So if there's a place you want us to cover, it doesn't have to be in Pittsburgh. It honestly doesn't even have to be in Pennsylvania. We're open to paranormal outside Pennsylvania. Be sure to send us an email, find us on socials, etc. You can follow us on social media for behind the scenes content, and tune in next Thursday to see what history and hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky, my friends.